This is a hostile and political act by Amazon.
Have you ever shopped on Temu? I did once. I bought this knockoff Lego Nook. They looked pretty good, but as it turns out, knockoff Legos aren't quite as durable as the real thing. I guess the Chinese just can't match that Danish level of quality when it comes to little plastic bricks. Anyways, I haven't shopped on Temu since, but I do know the website is quite popular. Temu and websites like it exist in part because of the de minimis tariff exception. Starting in 2016, foreign manufacturers were allowed to sell goods valued at less than $800 directly to American consumers duty-free. And so grew the popularity of websites where you can acquire these things directly. Back in April, the Trump administration, by executive order, of course, terminated the de minimis exception, meaning that Customs and Border Protection officials have started collecting revenue on these goods as they enter the United States. Predictably, this has caused an uptick in prices, and retailers like Temu have responded, in more ways than one. As the New York Times writes, since tariffs on Chinese goods are punishingly high, de minimis goods are already starting to cost a lot more. That's evident to shoppers on the Chinese e-commerce site Temu. The company recently began detailing the cost that tariffs would add to their purchases. For example, a cart of 10 items on Temu, including a 50-pack of heavy-duty hangers for $70.50, a men's green linen shirt for $19.38, and a fluffy pink dog bed for $24.05, came out to $275.03, including international freight charges and $10.20 in sales tax. But at checkout, the website tacked on $343.26 in import charges, bringing the total to $628.49. Temu does give shoppers the option of buying goods marked as coming from local warehouses that do not incur import charges. Sure enough, you can go to Temu, add an item to your cart, see if there's an import charge associated with that item, and if there is, how much it will add to your total. Temu is not the only retailer to do something like this. I've seen car dealerships in my area with pre-tariff price advertisements, but they are the most high profile. There was, however, at least according to Punchbowl News, a chance of that changing. Amazon, the country's largest online retailer, was also going to display tariff costs on their pricing. This upset the White House very much.
It was reported this morning that Amazon will soon display a little number next to the price of each product that shows how much the Trump tariffs are adding to the cost of each product. So isn't that a perfect crystal clear demonstration that it's the American consumer and not China who is going to have to pay for these policies?
I will take this since I just got off the phone with the president about Amazon's announcement. This is a hostile and political act by Amazon. Why didn't Amazon do this when the Biden administration hiked inflation to the highest level in 40 years? And I would also add that it's not a surprise because, as Reuters recently wrote, Amazon has partnered with a Chinese propaganda arm. So this is another reason why Americans should buy American. It's another reason why we are onshoring critical supply chains here at home to shore up our own critical supply chain and boost our own manufacturing here.
Since this press conference, an Amazon spokesperson has come out and denied that the company had any plans of doing this. And Jeff Bezos had what I assume to be a very pathetic and groveling phone call with President Trump to clear the air. Andrew Ross Sorkin and others at the New York Times have suggested that this poses a major conundrum for CEOs of major companies. Do they eat tariff-related cost increases and hurt their bottom line and investors? Do they pass the higher costs on to shoppers, potentially drawing their ire? Or do they level with consumers and dare angering Trump? With all due respect to the fine folks over at the New York Times, I don't see what the conundrum is. Why shouldn't these companies post about the tariffs? Donald Trump himself has gone on and on about how wonderful tariffs are.
I always say tariffs is the most beautiful word to me in the dictionary.
And how America was at its wealthiest when we had a robust tariff regime.
President McKinley made our country very rich through tariffs and through talent. He was a natural businessman.
Furthermore, I keep hearing from so many Trump supporters that they're willing to pay more for American-made products.
How much do prices have to go up before you say, this is not that great?
I'd rather not buy from China. I'd rather pay more money and buy American.
Price transparency of this sort would help demonstrate which goods have been imported. That way, these fine folks would be sure to avoid them. So obviously I'm being facetious. The reason why the White House is so peeved about the prospect of a company posting a tariff total is because it demonstrates the folly of so much of the pro-tariff rhetoric. The most obvious one being that other countries do not in fact pay the tariffs. Tariffs are paid by importers, and then they are usually passed on to consumers. Furthermore, and I'm not going to defend this position here, but on an intuitive level, it does seem to defy the idea that we were at our most prosperous when we were highly tariffed. Even if you think tariffs are a good policy in the long run, they're not, by the way, doubling the price of somebody's Temu shopping cart is not very persuasive and a political loser to boot. Now, the talking point that I want to focus on for this video is the idea that people are eager to pay more for American goods if only they were given the chance. The clip I played earlier came from a Frank Luntz town hall with Trump supporters. Here it is again.
Every article of clothing I have on is probably made in China, Malaysia, or somewhere else. Okay, retailers, give me something made in America. I'd gladly buy it, but it's not there. Go to Walmart. You ain't going to find jack pair of socks and underwears made in America.
Made in China.
Maybe. But, shoes, Nikes, Pumas, they're all overrated. They're probably all made overseas. How many American shoe companies have you seen go kaput? There used to be one 30 miles down the road, made Stride Rite, made great shoes. You don't hear from them. China, Malaysia.
We need a correction. We just need a correction. We're willing to take whatever it takes.
Write it out.
Yeah.
That's the point.
Stay the course.
It's
Stay the course.
Exactly. It's been a rough 2 weeks, but guess what? We got 3.5 years to worry.
Exactly.
And if it's like this in a year, I'll have another discussion maybe, but I don't think it's going to be.
As my friend Kirk Wilcox has pointed out, this is pretty much the same as a lefty saying they'd gladly pay more for a Big Mac so that the McDonald's worker could be paid a living wage. As we'll see, this is not the only example of Trumpers sounding like Bernie Sanders supporters. Except there is one significant difference. The I want to buy American crowd is going to have a much easier time voting with their dollars. You actually do have a lot of options to buy stuff that is made in America. Granted, you can't get everything, but you can get a lot of things, including clothes. Don't believe me? Go to Mike Lindell's website, My Store, and look at all the crap he's selling. All of it made in the USA. That's one of his selling points. This, of course, is to the extent that anything is really made in the US. Nothing, not even the simplest products, are really made in any single country anymore. The foreign-made textiles this dude bemoans will sometimes be made with US yarn or fabrics. There's actually a really good book about just how incredibly complicated it is to make a t-shirt in the global economy called The Travels of a T-Shirt in the Global Economy. I highly recommend it. But that's an aside. My point here being that by buying foreign products, you are probably supporting American jobs more than you know. And by buying products stamped with the Made in the USA label on it, you're probably not supporting American jobs as much as you think you are. Anyways, my big problem with these people who pat themselves on the back and say, I'm willing to pay more for products made in America and I'm not the only one, isn't that they want to buy American. It's their money, they can spend it how they want. It's that so many of them insist on forcing the rest of us to do the same. I respect your choice to buy American if you want. You should respect my choice to purchase goods and services from wherever it is that I please. For what it's worth, I don't even believe them. Not most of them anyways. I don't think they're actually willing to pay more. If you look at opinion polls, majorities usually say that they're willing to pay more to buy American. I would argue that this is not only false, it's self-evidently false, which is why protectionists insist on using tariffs in the first place. I think, all other things being equal, the vast majority of consumers will buy products with the best price. Just look at the brands that make their clothing in America. They're not the big ones. If the majority of people really did prefer American-made products, even if they're more expensive, these brands would be the biggest ones. People would just naturally seek these companies out, and we wouldn't need government intervention. And Mike Lindell's website would be giving Amazon a run for its money. The fact that protectionists insist on using tariffs to make less competitive products artificially less expensive than their foreign competitors is a concession that voluntary participation in buying American is quite low. We should also look at some revealed preferences here. In other words, what do people actually do when presented with options in front of them? The most recent example I could find comes from a company called Afina, which produces filtered shower heads. Ramon Van Meer, an investor in the company, decided to put the Buy American people to the test. As small business owners, we've heard it 1,000 times. I'd gladly pay more to support American made. We wanted to believe it, so we put it to the test. Afina took their best-selling shower head, which is manufactured in China and Vietnam, and put it against the exact same product that was manufactured in the United States. Given that manufacturing costs were more expensive for the domestic version, they had to charge $100 more than the Asian version. The prices were $129 and $239 respectively. The profit margins for both products were the same. Over the course of the experiment, 25,650 people looked at the products. 3,560 people add the Asian version to their cart, resulting in 584 purchases. During the same period, 24 people added the American version to their cart, resulting in 0 purchases. You heard that right, 0. As Afina writes, we tested everything. Color, copy, layout. We ran it over multiple days and traffic sources. Same outcome every time. For a moment, we thought we'd made a technical error. We hadn't. This wasn't a failure of marketing. It was a referendum on price. We wanted to believe that customers would back American labor with their dollars. But when faced with a real decision, not a survey or a comment section, they didn't. What do people really, in their heart of hearts, want? That's difficult, if not impossible, to say. That said, I personally place a lot more stock in where people are willing to spend their money than what they're willing to tell to a pollster or write on Twitter. Finally, I want to end by talking about transparency. Why was the White House so bent out of shape about the mere rumor of Amazon showing tariff costs? Well, again, I think part of it has to do with there not actually being wide buy-in for these policies. When people understand that tariffs, which they may support in the abstract, actually lead to them paying more, they may start to second-guess themselves. So I think that Trump wants to play hide the ball, much like the government already plays hide the ball with income tax. Ask yourself this: if it wasn't for automatic income tax withholding, do you think that Americans would tolerate our tax rates? If people had to write a check to the government every year on tax day, instead of just having that money taken out of their paycheck automatically, and for most people getting a refund check after filing, do you think that we would demand lower taxes? I think that the question answers itself. It's for a similar psychological reason that Trump wants the tariffs to be opaque. He doesn't want people to know when rising prices are a direct result of his policies. Another reason I think Trump doesn't want transparency here is for the purposes of scapegoating. Trump is nothing if not a skilled rhetorician, and I wouldn't put it past him to start badgering greedy corporations for rising prices, just like the left blamed corporate greed for inflation. I mean, Trump already adopted one of Bernie Sanders' talking points when it came to limiting consumer choice.
They made $1 trillion with Biden, $1 trillion, even $1.1 trillion with Biden selling us stuff. Much of it we don't need. You know, somebody said, oh, the shelves are going to be open. Well, maybe the children will have $2 instead of $30, you know? And maybe the $2 will cost a couple of bucks more than they would normally. But
why wouldn't he adopt another?